Hello, and welcome to the newest episode of Borderline Podcast Disorder. Um, a little later than usual this week. It just happened that there were a few things going on, and I wasn't able to to edit the episode on time for its release on Sunday, as I'd like to start a new. I guess that would be the new release date. But I wasn't able to do it on Sunday. Wasn't able to do it yesterday, and so here it is again. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for coming to listen to this. If it's your first time, thank you. And if you're a returning listener, thank you as well. And thank you for sticking with me. This week's episode, it's going to be a very, very good one. It's a very good one. It's with a brilliant comedian and lovely person, Andrea Hubert, and we got to talk about comedy, getting into comedy. We touched quite a bit on what that journey is like and what it feels like, basically. And we also got to talk about her. Funnily enough, interesting enough. Before I got diagnosed with BPD, I got diagnosed with like an early diagnosis of bipolar, whilst to Andrea was the other way around. She got diagnosed with BPD, although she kind of like had to, perhaps stick with that diagnosis for much longer. To me, it was only a matter of weeks. But she got diagnosed with BPD, ended up doing DBT, and only later on got the right diagnosis and he was put on the right treatment plan with bipolar 2. So you see, again, that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about, but the other things are about a lot of comedy. I didn't expect to talk about it that much, and to talk about the even like the creative process and how she ended up sticking with comedy, and also her new passion was kind of new passion, came to be addressed during our conversation. So you're in for a treat. Enjoy the episode, and I'll catch you before we wrap it up. Okay, so hello, Andrea. How's it going?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're very welcome.
What you been up to recently?
What have I been up to recently? I've been learning to sew. I bought a machine about 3 years ago, and I've been too scared to touch it because it's really complicated. I don't understand how we can make planes fly, but we can't have a sewing machine that works just sort of automatically. You pop this thing in and then it works. It's not like that at all. So I've been studying many YouTube channels on how to thread it. And so as soon as I work something out, I feel so good I take a day off. I'm in the middle of I'm making my first thing. I'm making like a pink kimono, and I have a problem with concentrating on anything or sticking with anything. In fact, the only thing I've ever really stuck with is comedy, and I'm trying really hard. It's interesting, but it's not fun, if you see what I mean. Like I'm trying to remember, as I have always to remember with comedy, that it's okay to be shit at the beginning. It's okay to not know what you're doing. It's okay to make a million mistakes if you're ready to deconstruct it and work out where you went wrong, which I think I'm happy to do with sewing and with comedy. So yeah, bit of a parallel there, I guess.
But how? I mean, I think, I don't know. I think if I were to think of two things that are are quite common. Sewing and comedy wouldn't be
Well,
on my.
I didn't answer the question with the thought of making a parallel. It just started. It just started to occur to me while I was saying it that it's the second thing I've stuck with in recent years. I would never diagnose myself with anything. I just would say that I have trouble concentrating, and I I definitely get distracted very easily. But more than that, I hate being bad at stuff. And when you first start something, you're really bad at it. There's this amazing quote by Ira Glass that talks about when you start writing how shit you are, and the reason that you start is because you have great taste. So you look at these people and you want to be just like them, but you're not good enough yet because you haven't done your 10,000 hours and you haven't found your voice. But keep going because your taste is killer, and it means you should carry on. And I love clothes so much. I buy and sell on Vinted all the time. And I just really want, I always used to hand sew stuff when I was younger. And it was just time to, but the reason I left the machine there for 3 years is because I was so scared of being shit. And then one day I was like, yeah, this is ridiculous. Just do it.
Okay, well, here's a question. How did you? Were you always like this? Were you always scared of? And I just to quote you, were you always scared of being shit, or is that
Yes.
something that?
I was always scared of being shit, but I think as well it's a impatience thing. There's something slightly entitled about the idea of wanting to be good at something straight away, and because other people can be. So you like it only. I only got later in life to the point where I understood that it was much more about hard work than talent. I wish I'd got there earlier. I'm sure adults around me tried to teach me earlier, but I was like, why am I not automatically good at this? So and so is automatically great at this. And it's like, no, you'll have to work harder because you don't have much of an aptitude. And I was funny at the beginning, but I wasn't great at writing jokes. I'm still not great at writing jokes, but I work harder now. And I recognize that, yeah, the hard work, but I think it's this feeling of slight entitlement of why am I not just instantly amazing, but more fear that I won't be, and that fear stops you starting. So there've been lots of things that I've wanted to do that I've been too scared to start doing, but some genuine fear. Like I really want to. I learned to ice skate when I was like 30 because I couldn't do it before then because I was too scared of falling over. And one day we went ice skating. I was just on the side as usual. My friend Dan was like, "Nope." And he just took me straight to the middle where I had no choice. And now I can ice skate very badly, I might add, but I really love the fact that I can. And since then, I've tended to try and get into the middle of the rink, which is quite fun. You know, when I first started emceeing, I didn't know what I was doing, but just get into the middle of the rink and hope you don't fall over. But even if you do fall over, just hope nobody slices your fingers off with their
You see,
stick.
this is actually my biggest fear with ice skating was the slicing of the
It's
fingers.
everybody's
Because I
biggest
was like,
fear. It's everybody's.
I'm gonna fall,
Yeah.
and then someone's gonna
Slice my
see me
fingers off.
fall,
Yep.
and they're gonna wait for me to put my hands out
Oh, that's a lot
to.
darker than what I thought. Mine was always some speedy skater wouldn't notice my hand. And there's actually
No,
series of comics about this, about all the things that you're scared of that you shouldn't be scared of. Like for some reason, because of cartoons that we watched when we were younger, we're all scared of quicksand. Why? We live in England, but we're so scared of quicksand. You know, like I'm terrified of quicksand. I've never been near quicksand in my entire life, and I probably never will. But I am still scared of. I'm scared of all sorts of stupid things that are purely from Roadrunner cartoons.
Oh god, that was a good cartoon though. That's the thing.
Great
It
cartoon.
obviously there are side effects to it, but
Terrified of
all in
sharks.
all,
Why am I terrified of sharks? I'm not. I don't live near a shark beach. That's completely pointless to be. The thing I'm really scared of is spiders, and you can't. Logically, it's insane to be scared of the kind of spiders we see, but I am. But yeah, in terms of being scared to start something, or being scared that something's going to go wrong, like your fingers are going to get chopped off. Yeah, for me, that's a very logical fear. Your fingers could get chopped off, but in all the news that we've watched, when was the last time somebody got their fingers chopped off from ice skating? I think that
for ice
most,
skating, yeah.
I feel like most normal people would skate around that person.
You see, exactly, because this is why now I'm like, yeah, of course. And I mean, even at the time when I used to ice skate, when I was a teenager in Romania, we used to do it every winter because we had like 3 months of just snow. So you had those like natural,
I
it was
see you
beautiful. But
skating on a river, whereas we had to go to like Slough for the ice skating rink. Did you guys have a rink?
oh wait, so Slough, that's
That's
near
just
London?
Yeah, it's just a town that had a really good ice skating rink. And now all the posh houses have them, like Somerset House, etc. They have them in the winter. But I've never been to Romania. I have this idea that somehow there's a lot of lakes and rivers that you can skate on.
There was, and you know what? Actually, the best one was in the was in a zoo.
Okay.
Somehow they had this. I think that's where they had the water basin. You're
Oh
calling it,
yeah,
for yeah. So basically, when it would like one of the old basins, I guess, it would frost over winter, and that's probably where they got the idea.
that's
And
cool.
yeah, we used to go there. It was really good. But then you
Yeah,
see,
if
this
I
is
was
the thing,
skating
Mike.
on a natural body of water, I'd be terrified of falling in on the thin spot because of so many movies.
Oh yeah, that as well. Yeah, because you see those uh, like people fishing,
Yeah,
in the
yeah, exactly. And I would not survive. I don't like the cold. I wouldn't survive. No, I wouldn't. In any situation, I wouldn't survive an apocalypse with zombies. I would not survive. I haven't got those kinds of skills. You want somebody who's standing there making some jokes, then sure, if you think that's an important person to save, I wouldn't save that person.
but you
If you
see, well,
want to
even
save a person who can sort of use a sewing machine, then by all means save me. But
actually they might want clothes.
well, there's lots of clothes. Nobody's buying them in the shops because there's so many zombies. There's absolutely no
Okay,
need. And it's not like I'd run around with my sewing machine.
you never know. I guess if God forbid there is a zombie apocalypse, and you might want to grab the sewing machine and be like, look, here is a skill that not many people have. So, you
Again,
know,
I think
spare me.
building stuff, I think that all the people who have practical skills were going to be gods at that point.
Yeah, well,
I mean, I can start a
I
fire. That's about the best I can do. I can start a fire from scratch.
no way.
Yeah, I used to go camping, so as long I can't do the wood thing, where you do it from a spark.
Yeah.
I've never tried, to be fair. I'm sure I could if I had to, but I feel like everything else, like knowing the right kind of wood, shaving the wood, making kindling, I can do all that. Which
No way.
because I'm very suburban, but I can.
No way.
Yeah,
So where are you from?
from London, from northwest London.
Northwest. Okay, and then you went ice skating in Slough. Oh, Slough. Yeah, that's why I know it. It's because it's near the office
That's
UK.
exactly where the office was set, in Slough. Slough,
Yeah.
I think people make fun of Slough because it's maybe not so beautiful or whatever, but I don't really know anything about it besides the fact that the office was there and that's where I used to go ice skating. So it's when, how you have those towns where everyone's like, ugh, I'd rather do anything than go there. I think it's one of those that people say, but all I know is ice skating. That for me, it was a nice day out. I'm not sure
Okay.
I live there, but I'm not sure I'd want to live anywhere. So, you know, nowhere in England
That
feels very appealing right now.
Well, so now you're from North London. Oh, what was it like? Because when you started comedy, again, you're talking about the fear of being shit of something, but then only finding a couple of things that you like stick
Yeah.
you stick through. How did you kind of like? What made you almost like pick comedy as your arts? Like as your outlet, I guess, for like your
Well,
artistic outlet.
I'd a friend of mine was doing these storytelling nights. It was quite a new thing, storytelling nights, and I went along and did a couple of those, and I made people laugh, and they said, "Oh, do you do comedy?" And I thought maybe I will do comedy, and so I went and did some comedy. I really liked it. I like making people laugh, and it worked. Initially, I was like, I had good gigs, and then of course you have your first bad one, and you're like, oh my god, I'm terrible. And then normally at that point, I would give up. But because I was at that point, I was like 32. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to I didn't actually cross my mind to give up, but I imagine myself at 20 having a bad gig and going, right, that's it. I wasn't resilient then. But at this point, I was like, oh, this is something you work on to be better. and I would like to be better. And it's not like I have to find a way to thread a needle that I absolutely can't do. It's going to take me 10 hours. It might take me a bit to write this joke. And sometimes jokes take months to get where they're going, but I didn't know that at the time, or I probably wouldn't have done it. I don't quite know why it was different to the other things I had done. Maybe I just enjoyed it more. I think I'm a
Mm.
bit of a like an attention seeker. I think when you're sewing alone, you don't get a lot of praise. You have to praise yourself. Well done. That was almost a straight seam, like, well done you.
Almost straight.
Nothing got bunched up there. Well done you. But it's not the same as when you do a great joke in front, or just a joke that works in front of people and they all laugh and you're like, I did that. I just created joy in a room. I feel none of it, of course, because I'm a comedian, but I created joy in a room for other people. For 1 second, I created something amazing. That's really, well, not amazing if the joke is, basic, but still you created a moment. And that's
I think again that the jokes, I guess. I mean, I would say arguably, of course, but it's hard to come with like iconic or like amazing jokes. But to make amazing moments is much easier, and because it's
have to
about
be
the.
amazing. They just have to be joyful and they have to be fun. A person who, like, you don't know what kind of, I always think to myself, the reason I put in 100% every single time I do a professional gig, I mean, I put in 100% if I'm trying to, there's nowhere I like put in 50, but sometimes you feel like shit. But if I'm being booked on a Saturday night somewhere, that means that whoever has bought a ticket has got a babysitter, or maybe they're a carer who has managed to get time off. And there is no way I'm going to disrespect that. They might hate my comedy and feel cheated, but at least they'll have got my like undivided attention,
I think that's an amazing. That's a beautiful way to look at it, because it's kind of like you said. You at least, like you said, maybe they might not enjoy the act per se, or might not be their type of comedy, but at least you know that you've given your best, or like you've given your kind of like you showed up basically.
Yes, exactly. And I'm not saying that other comics don't. I'm just saying for me, if I am somebody's Saturday night entertainment, I can't change the jokes, but I certainly wouldn't come in and just be like, oh, let's get this over with. I might think that, but when I was on stage, I would be trying my hardest to give them a laugh. Doesn't always work, but I would be trying my hardest. I would hope that when they got home, they felt that the £10 an hour or £15 or whatever it is for a babysitter now was money well spent. That would be really, I hope that happens.
Well, you see, this is quite. I mean, I think this is a very healthy way of thinking about it on
So I
the
do
respect of.
some things healthily. That's nice to know.
Sorry.
So I am healthy in some ways. That's nice.
Yeah, because again, like I feel like it's such a nice thing to, because I do often sometimes think of like, oh, who's the audience, like who is it that you're catering with, because again, like there are people who they just want to like leave their troubles away for a couple hours and just have a good time.
Yeah.
And were you always like was that always your mindset? Or is that something that you developed from the comedy, or was it actually just from personal life? How did you come to this point?
I think at the beginning, I just wanted to make people laugh so I could feel good, but also so that I could be good at what I was doing. And, then my friends started having kids, and I realized that a babysitter is very expensive. I also would see people being really poorly behaved. A couple of the groups that can be really badly behaved are teachers and hospital like carers and nurses. And I was like, why is that? And then I realized it's because their job is so unbelievably hard and so absolutely relentless. I don't know that they necessarily know that how raucous they're being can be really off-putting. It's usually around Christmas. It's usually around the end of a term or a year. And it's not that I think it's okay to completely disrupt a night, but I have a lot more empathy for like a bunch of teachers than I do for a bunch of, I guess, like hen or stag parties, which by the way, isn't that bad really most of the time. People have really changed over the years. But again, it's not that I think it's okay to behave like that, but what I've tried to do around Christmas is to kind of work with what I've got, because I think empathy comes a bit later in life, especially for me. I think that I started this thinking only of myself and my good time. And I think over the years, you remember that without the audience, you're just an idiot standing there saying shit with nothing. If you took the audience away, you'd just be a random in front of a microphone, making no one laugh and just being like, what am I doing? But the audience is, you can't have disdain for the audience. You can have fear for the audience, but like, some people go places and they're like, oh, these people, they're not clever enough for my comedy. I'm like, well, I don't know, if your comedy's super cerebral, maybe they're not, but you're still supposed to make them laugh. So, that's your job to do that.
Interesting, because I mean there are uh, some wonderful points there, and what was curious about, because you were your act, or like what you do on stage, is it similar to what you portrayed yourself to be when you started doing stand up, or have you changed? And if you've changed, how big was that, or like how did it feel?
I don't even know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I've got a fairly dark sense of humor, according to others, but I don't personally think it's dark. I think that all comedy is dark. I think comedy's dark by its nature. Do you know what I mean? Because you're making fun of yourself, you're making fun of a situation. You're not making fun of something that is intrinsically wonderful. Like, you can't make fun of a sunset. You know what I mean? You don't make fun of a rainbow.
Yeah.
You're making fun of a disaster. Not like Chernobyl, but like, a disastrous day or a disastrous outfit or a disastrous person or whatever. So for me, comedy is dark all by itself, but I've been told that I do darker comedy, but I just think that's the way I think. I think I've got better. I've become more myself, but I don't think I'm anywhere near as good as I would like to be. I don't think I'm anywhere near as good as in the persona as I would like to be. The one thing that I know to be true is that I'm very, very, very different as an MC than I am as a like doing a set. Doing a set is for me is complete. Some people are the same person. I'm a completely different person when I'm an MC.
Interesting. How so?
I have to put on a I like people costume. I have to put on this like emotional zip up outfit that's like, hi, how are you? God, that's so great. And I don't want anyone to listen to this and think I don't like, but that's a job that requires that. And some people are so gregarious, they genuinely don't have to try to do that stuff. I taught myself to MC so I could get more money, as in more work.
Yeah, of course.
It's not my happy place. And I'll happily do it. And it's perfectly fine now. And it's a happy place in this. I mean, I MC some of the bigger clubs and I'm really happy doing it and I'm happy for the work. And I get a real kick out of the fact that I've taught myself to do something that's not very natural to me. But some people are natural at it. That was not a natural thing for me to be,
But you see, you were saying earlier that when you start doing comedy, it was like, oh, I feel good about it makes me feel better because I make people laugh. Now, when you had to make this decision where you are like, hey, look, you're making a career out of this, you gotta MC, because that's another.
You definitely don't have to, but I got dropped in at the deep end one time. I was doing my first Glee weekend in Birmingham, and it was a big deal because it's a big club, and I was on in the middle, which is like the easiest spot, especially when you're new. And what happened was there was a big charity event on the first night, and so all the other acts were really kind of like hardcore, had been years on the circuit, brilliant acts. And they said to me, we've put all these people onto this charity night, and the only way it's going to work is if we rotate them around, taxi them there. So you have to MC. I'd never MC'd in my life. Suddenly I'm MCing the Glee. And if I'd said no, I don't think they would have taken me seriously a comic. I don't think they would have ever booked me again. So at that point, I was like, okay, we're doing this. And I just kind of did an impression of an MC. hi, how are you? Like, oh my God, it's so good to be here. Who are you? What's your name? And it turned out I can be funny off the cuff. However, I then saw the MC the next night, the real MC, whose name was Mark Olver, do the job. And I was like, there is a really big difference between getting away with it and actually doing an incredible job. It was like he was an artist just picking from the crowd and like connecting people. And you learn to do it, but some people are just born with it. But yeah, he can, like, now I can do it. I can do how he does it, but he would like make connections between people, remember what they'd said, make connections, make jokes around like weave a story in the audience.
Yeah.
It was inspiring to watch. But yeah, that
Oh,
was a hell of a way to start emceeing.
right. Well, it was, yes, because I feel like, yeah, it again, like you said, it's what was the alternative? You know, like you go, oh no, I wouldn't do this,
There's no
and
alternative. In
then
that situation,
yeah,
the alternative would have been to say no. They lose all faith in you, and you're not a brave person. You're so there's a lot of things about this that are terrifying, but you still have to do them. And that's just, and if you don't, like, you can say no to things if you think you're not ready, but one thing I feel like I've learned is that you should say yes to stuff you're not ready for, I think. And it
which
could go very badly wrong, but you should still say yes to it.
I think it can go wrong, but I feel like even I want to say almost luckily, given the fact that it's comedy,
Yeah.
even
So
when it
he's so
goes wrong, because even when it goes wrong, it's like it can be funny
yeah, oh
because
yeah,
it
definitely. Like,
can,
it can be a complete
like,
disaster.
I remember I've only done it a few times, but like I remember the like corporate or like private events that I've done,
Oh God,
and
I
I was
never
like,
for those ever.
I've never done well at these, but then but even in my head, I'm like, you know what, even if it doesn't go well, it could be a funny story, and like, you know what, actually, some of my jokes now, like some of the stories that I do, are stories of those gigs.
Well, yeah, I mean, I tend to try and not do stories of gigs because I wonder how relatable they are to the audience. But sometimes humiliation is so relatable, and it is what we do for a living. So if someone was talking about
Yeah.
in the office, it would be fine. So I kind of got over that. But like, yeah, some of the most humiliating, horrendous moments from the past 15 years that I can dine out on have been because my gigs have gone sideways in a really, really messed up way. I once had to be escorted out the back of somewhere because there was a group of women waiting to beat me up. And I was, yeah, they would have killed me probably because they were hardcore and
What?
I am not hardcore. So it was and because I just bombed so hard and like they hated me so much.
Really?
It was very funny. I mean, in retrospect, it was funny. At the time, it
In
wasn't.
retrospective, yeah. God, like I mean, what was it? What's it like to, again, like that happened to you? What was it like the next day?
Well, the gig itself was a kind of a music thing. There were about 2,000 people in the audience. I was quite new. And again, everyone else on the bill was really incredibly experienced. And I went out there and I died for about 12 minutes and I had to get off the stage, which I've never done before since, like got off early, but I had to because they were throwing pint glasses at me. And it was so bad. And someone had filmed it and they put it up the next day on Twitter and we had to get it taken down. And I got loads of hate messages the next day. But what was quite funny in retrospect was I came off and everyone was trying so hard not to laugh at me because I was trying so hard not to cry. And eventually they
Oh
just
God.
laughing and I managed to not cry. And it was at this like holiday camp thing, music festival, and it wasn't my crowd, let's put it that way. And I had to get a bus away from the place. I had to get a bus to take me to the station. And I had another gig that night that was really important to me. I wanted to do really well. And so I sat on that bus for 40 minutes, just frozen. And as soon as the bus turned on the engine, I started to cry. And I didn't stop crying until 2 hours later when I got to the next gig and cried all the way through that and completely ruined it. I can't remember what the question was, but there was a lot of crying. There was a lot of crying. And then, you know, the next day you just carry on. You know, like it didn't feel great, but a lot of stuff in my life feels worse, you know, like oversharing while drunk the next morning feels way worse than a bad gig. A bad gig now is just a completely fine thing for me, but when you first start, it's not a fine thing. Yeah, it's terrible when you first start, but you get advice from people. Like Sarah Millican always says, there's a Sarah Millican rule where you're allowed to feel amazing or terrible up until about 10 a.m. the next day, and then you have to throw it away. So you don't get an ego and you don't start hating yourself. I thought that was a pretty good.
No, that I think I've have heard that before, and it's
a pretty good rule to live by when you're a comic. To just, you know, you can feel amazing that the gig was amazing, but the truth is that your next gig could be horrific. So there's not much point in walking around feeling like you're the best ever, because you're not.
So you see, when this when this happened, and you're becoming an established comic. You're making a living out of it.
Just about.
Yeah. Well, but you see, still, like, what was it like? Because I guess, the transition from, oh, the gig didn't go well, but I'm only kind of like building up towards a career in this. I'm at the beginning. It's not that bad. But then, what was it like for you when you've basically solidified your position as a pro comic, and now did it come with extra pressure that, oh, if the gig doesn't go well, then?
Well, some people don't feel that pressure. Some people are very confident. I am not. So for me, it never went away particularly. I always think I'm like 2 seconds away from never working again. But I think that the people that you meet along the way, who you get on really well with, if you're at a club, I mean, look, I've messed up at big clubs and they've continued to book me. So that means to me that they understand the nature of comedy. When I say I messed up, it just means I didn't do well. They understand that one night someone might hate you and the whole room might hate you. And the next night, they've seen people who are absolute killers have bad gigs. So it's not just me, but because I'm insecure, it might feel that way to me. I came off the other day and I was like, oh God, that didn't go well. And Mick Ferry turned to me and he said, I have gigged with you 100 times and I have never heard you say it went well, even when you've killed. Like, did you know that every time you come off stage, you are unhappy? And I was like, I did not know that. He goes, yeah, it's like become hilarious. It's like a thing now. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, I just, and you have to remember that you're crazy and that it's not always, it's often as good as you think, but it's never as bad as you think.
Okay, and now, because you were talking about how being like an insecure, feeling insecure at times. Is that something you've noticed before you started doing comedy?
Was I insecure?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I don't think anyone. There's some really confident people who do this because they're this confident, amazing, born to be on the stage. But I think a lot of us make people laugh because we're insecure. So we want to be liked. And, we don't necessarily think we're enough. And then you discover you're funny. Like I was looking at some of my old school reports the other day. And they were like, Andrea loves to make people laugh, but she's not really paying attention to her education. and I looked at loads of these, like over the years, and they were all the same. They're like, yes, she's very amusing to have in class, but she really does distract people. And I can see that I didn't have any like confidence in my academic abilities, which is stupid because I was perfectly fine at school. But I don't think I liked myself very much. But what I did like was when people laughed, and I was the one who created that. So I think that there are a few gregarious comics who are naturally confident. And I think the rest of us have a lot of insecurities, which is not to say you're scared to talk to people. Like almost everyone I know who I work with is insecure about something, has got anxiety about something. You don't necessarily see it when they're on stage. You don't even necessarily see it in the green room. But, haven't you seen the amount of people who've started talking about their anxiety? That was always there. It's just nobody talked about it.
But you see, now you're obviously you're seeing this now. However, at what point did you actually notice this about yourself?
notice what?
Or again, like I think just about anyone in general, because I think what you said is actually it's very true, and I see myself a lot in the idea of like uh,
Close
almost like
out.
the reason why I do comedy is because of all the insecurities I have about myself, and the reason why I want to be like, hey, look, I'm funny.
Yeah, yeah,
At least
exactly.
I'm
If you
funny.
can be funny, it's better than being pretty. It's better than being clever. It's better than all of those things, for me anyway. Not for any of the men in the audience when looking at me, or any other female, I might add. But it is, for me, it's the most important thing. I think it always has been. But the question was, when did I notice that? I don't know the answer to that. I think looking at those reports, I must have noticed it very early on. Um,
I see. Okay.
but I think I was quite
Oh, so
irritated
good.
with it. I think I was irritating to my family. I think I was attention seeking. I think I was annoying in class, constantly being like cheeky or trying to make the class work, trying to make this teacher look stupid. I think I was thoroughly irritating for a lot of my life.
I mean, actually hearing you say this, I remembered about the amount of times I got in trouble for um
Talk.
because I used to do the exact same thing. Yeah, I used to make fun of everything. I used to be like the class clown.
And you know what?
And
Like, sometime I wish that I'd understood that there were ways to channel it elsewhere. um, because there are certain times I just remember with absolute cringe. I mean, I was once trying to make people laugh in a poetry class, and I love poetry. If that doesn't sound too wanky, I really do. And my teacher got really angry with me. She's like, "This is a really serious and important poem. Can you please pay attention?" I remember it thinking, "Yeah, I really should not. This is not the right time," And it's like that, like with when you have to remember that you're not around comics, and you can't just say the C word whenever you like, and you can't just make horrific jokes whenever you'd like. It was at that point, and I was like, "Oh yeah, no, this is not the right time. This is a really beautiful thing we're learning. This isn't the time to be stupid." Also, she made me so ashamed that I just shut up.
but you see, actually, that's quite interesting because um coming back to something that you mentioned earlier, where you're like, people or some people would describe your act as like being like dark humor, right?
I guess, yeah.
Um,
But people have said that to me.
People, well, now, wait, 'cause what was my point?
I think humor is dark. That's my
Oh, I think because so do I. I actually feel like the way it's almost like because you're talking about, or like the way I thought about it is like you're building tension and then it's like a tension release because of this out of this world punchline that you've just
well, I don't know if I describe any of them as out of this world, but sure, that's the idea is to make them out of this world for sure.
well that's the goal. I'm not talking from personal experience. I'm
But
just
that
saying
is
what I heard.
cool, yeah.
But that's so that's why actually sometimes I do also sometimes forget in real life that, oh, this is not like a comedy writing class, or like this is not I'm not in front of my computer writing. I'm in a group of people who don't again, it's pretty serious.
It's not that it's necessarily serious, but it's not about you. It's not about you, and it's not about your need to laugh. At that point, it was about understanding a really great poem. It was not about me and my need to have that attention. And I think that was quite an important distinction. It was quite like, well, the fact is that was like however many years ago, and it stuck with me really strongly, because of the shame I felt. And I think that there was nothing wrong with that. I think that was a pretty good lesson.
Hmm. Okay. What's it like, or even like what was actually what was it like for the people who knew you from before comedy to then
You'd have to ask them. I think my sister prefers it that I've got somewhere else to put it rather than the Friday night dinner table. In fact, I think, yeah, like I said, I think I was really annoying. I think I was really annoying, but I was also annoying before being diagnosed with bipolar too. I was also really annoying before going to therapy. I think that I was super emotional, super sensitive, and I don't think I was the best sister or the best whatever. I feel like I'm much better now, and I know I am because people have said it to me. But I think comedy plus therapy plus maturity plus medication has made me much more palatable to the people in my life. Um, some of my friends were like terrified to come and see me because they didn't know if I was deluded or not. So their biggest thing was relief when they would come see a gig and go, oh, thank God, like this is actually something you could do, rather than, oh, this is horrific, I'm so embarrassed for you. But I was never worried, but I think they were worried. But in terms of massive relief, I think it's much more I think my family got a lot out of me doing this. I think they got a lot out of that for their own. I'm less annoying. I don't need to win dinner anymore. I don't, I don't need to win anything. And I really, now I see how, I mean, it wasn't like a nightmare, but I certainly needed all the attention. I needed to win dinner. I needed to win every Jewish holiday. I needed to be the one who made the holiday fun, the one who made dinner fun, the one who was the most entertaining. And I don't think I ever thought of it like that. That was just the way I was. And I do think, I think my mum was fine with it, but I think my sisters found it irritating for sure.
I see. Then, actually, something that very interesting that I'm sometimes battling with, in regards to, because I actually didn't know that you were you diagnosed with bipolar.
Bipolar 2.
Well, what's it like now to, again, when you're gigging? Obviously you have like a day's work, so then obviously, saying in one day you might not feel so great, but then obviously you've got a shift.
My meds are working really well, so I tend to feel okay at the moment. Before I was on these meds and I was just on antidepressants, there was lots of days that I didn't want to do it. And I didn't usually cancel, but what would happen is things would get very dark. Like I would sort of start talking about stuff that wasn't funny, and I'd make it funny or I wouldn't. But most of the time I would say I would. When I was, because I was doing this thing, because I got diagnosed first with borderline, which wasn't the right diagnosis, but they made me do all this. They made me do all this DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy.
Yeah, I've done it.
Yeah. No, it's really, I don't regret it. It was very, very good. But it's really hard to put into practice because there's so much, it's so intellectual. There's so much learning. And so I used to go to this group, and I had this guy in the group who I hated so much. So I'd go to the group, and then I'd go straight to the Monday Club at the Comedy Museum, and I would just do 5 to 7 minutes on how much I hated this guy. And it was funny, and it would be different every single week. It would just be about like what he'd done that week to piss me off, what he'd done that week to piss me off. And that was my comedy on a Monday for like a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting, because I actually didn't know as well that you've been diagnosed with BPD. Again, it wasn't the right diagnosis, but
it wasn't the right diagnosis. In fact, it was a really bad diagnosis for me because it wasn't correct, and also it wasn't correct because the idea, I mean, obviously, as you know, they say that the idea is to actually come off antidepressants and come off medication and just kind of manage your emotions, regulate, etc., with the breathing, the cold water, the tip, all the stuff that you learn in DBT, which again I found fascinating, and I'm glad I did. It's certainly helped me. Like breathing techniques have helped me, cold water techniques have helped me, like full body tensing has helped me. Like there's loads of stuff in it, so I wouldn't ever say it was a waste. It was bloody expensive, but it wasn't a waste. But actually, it wasn't the correct diagnosis. And I don't know that I am completely correct in saying this, but I do think a lot of times when you are not seeing the right people, that's a catch-all diagnosis, especially for women, that they just go, oh, you must be this. And I'm in this group with this woman who's like, well, I mean, like I found it was hard to regulate my emotions, but that's because I was missing certain things. Now I'm on all the right meds. It's really not that hard. Like I can do it. And it doesn't take a million different techniques. I can just kind of go, okay, this isn't quite real. This is too much. And I can do that. But before I was on all these particular bipolar meds, it was harder. But I see this, there was one woman in my group. It was the funniest thing ever. She was quite nice, but you could see that she had borderline. And she said, my husband was going out and I thought he was going out because he was having an affair. And so obviously I had absolutely no option but to take off all my clothes and jump on the bonnet of his car. And we all just started laughing and we were like, absolutely no option. Like, there's not one single thing that you could have done. She said, well, I had to stop him leaving. And I was like, yeah, but why do you have to be naked? And she's like, I don't know. I just felt like I had to be. And I was like, yeah,
Oh, come on.
we're not the same. And at that point, I started to realize this isn't right for me. And I kept having to kind of mold myself into it in order, because I needed a diagnosis just to explain why I was so miserable. And then ever since I got this one, and I'm on 3 different medications, and I was like, oh, this is it. This is the one. This is perfect. And now I feel very, very normal, very, very chilled. I messed some relationships up along the way before these meds that can't be fixed, and that's okay. It's a shame, but it happened. And I just wasn't regulated, and now I feel like any relationship I have now, friend or a boyfriend, is going to have much more of a chance.
This is very good to hear, and I feel like, it's quite like, again, it's good because, or again, it feels good because, like, it's good to have gotten to the point where you're like, okay, now it's easier to understand, it's easier to control, it's easier to do all these things, because I'm actually, thinking that, funnily enough, I was the opposite. I got diagnosed with bipolar, and then after that my psychiatrist was like, but I'm not 100% sure. So
Bipolar 2 is very different to bipolar 1, though. So
yeah,
bipolar 2 is more likely to be misdiagnosed. Bipolar 1 is a completely different ballgame.
I would say I remember at the time being the one that Kanye, that was the one that I've got diagnosed with.
Oh, the one that Kanye has. Well, yeah. Fucked up.
So that was, because I remember that particular one, because I remember Googling it and I was like, oh, who's got this type?
But you
And it
need
was like,
heavy meds for that. That's a very serious illness. I mean, mine is serious too, but it's not the same. That's a very serious thing. That's like, you could be in danger. I have like, it's a different sort of part of the same thing, but it is more serious.
so you see, I think this is why because I was under like psychiatric care at the time, and I think this is why he was like, actually, you know what, let's do some more tests. So like, because basically what happened was, a few days later, I ended up doing another test, and then another test, and then after those, it was like a questionnaire almost. I mean, it was a questionnaire. And then after that, he was like, look, although you scored high on this, I think actually it looks more like borderline. And then I've got the borderline diagnosis. And although I'm still medicating, but I have done the DBT. It was interesting. I agree with you. It was a good experience. I feel like there's sometimes, and it's quite interesting to hear from you as well, that sometimes it's hard to put them in practice in
That's
IRL.
the part I found really, really difficult. There were a couple that really worked, like it's the breathing in and then breathing out longer. That really, really helped me. But there was so much other stuff that it was too much for me. And I started thinking, well, maybe this isn't the right diagnosis. And then a bunch of stuff happened in my personal life that made me find a new psychiatrist and just find a way through. And it turns out that these new meds and this new diagnosis is right for me. So yeah, huge relief. But that's not to say that yours isn't right for you. It's just mine is a huge relief to me, because not that I didn't, I didn't feel stigmatized by borderline or anything like that. It's more just that it wasn't right, and and it wasn't making me feel better to have all this information. It was great, but it wasn't fixing me to have, like, breathing just wasn't doing it for me.
He wasn't doing it. Yeah, it's very understandable. But you see now, obviously, you've got all those going on, and also like you're talking about the writing the comedy. When in the days when it was the days that weren't going that well, you would go. It would be quite dark, and actually, you know what? I can relate to that a lot, because I had the exact same thing where I would sometimes I would just write this stuff, which, like you said, when it was funny, and like when I was getting a laughter from the audience, it was a I'd say a nice and long
Yeah.
and beautiful laugh. But then when it wasn't, and I even sometimes I watch videos of myself from back
Oh,
before I got
I have
diagnosed.
no early videos, thank God.
and and when I look at them, I was like, oh my God, like I want to go and hug myself.
Yeah.
You know, I genuinely like, I feel like I just want to go and be like, it's okay, Levy. Like you're it's okay.
You're failing
Mhm.
learning in front of an audience. It's a very, very difficult skill. You know, if you're wanting to get ripped, you do it at the gym and then you take it out and you show it off. But you can't do that with what we're doing. So it's actually much harder than people can imagine. You know, I'm sitting learning to use my sewing machine, then I'll take my thing out and I'll wear it and people will go, "Oh my God, wow." And I'll go, "Yeah, I made this," but they won't have seen me throw the thing across the room or anything like that. But what we're doing is we have to keep our emotions in check whilst failing, whilst dealing with the feeling of failing, whilst wanting to be better, whilst knowing it could have gone better, whilst knowing that, the audience. I never blame the audience. I was arguing with a new friend of mine who's an open micer, and he was saying sometimes the audience is just shit. And I'm like, that is not, in my opinion, that's not how you look at this. You look at if there is a headliner out there who could have nailed that audience, that means one day you will be able to nail that audience, which means, yes, they were a shit audience, but that's not what you need to tell yourself.
Interesting. And is that how you always looked at it?
Yes.
Or is that something that you okay, right? So
Well, I had a really bad experience early doors, and there was a couple of things going on. Like when I first started, women were not keen on women, like more so than men. Women didn't like comics very much, and they used to come up to me if I'd had a good gig and say, "I really usually hate women." I mean, men do it and did it and still do it. It's hilarious, but women used to do it. And they used to come and say, I really don't like women comics, but you were really funny. And I would say things like, don't your friends make you laugh? Like, that's what a weird thing to say. And I give them a list of comics I thought were great. And I was like, go and check these women out. They're great. Um, what was the question?
no, no, no I think the question was whether you've always had this
Oh, yes.
this
I would look at
mentality of
that.
like
I
it's
would,
not the audience that's responsible. Like it's not the audience being shit.
well,
The
sometimes
reason why
people are
some
really, really cruel. So I had this one gig, I was really new and I did really badly. These women were heckling me. They were being incredibly nasty. Every single joke I did, they ripped to pieces. If I went on now with my stuff, it would be a very different thing because I'm a lot better than I was, firstly. Secondly, I'm a lot better at cutting people down who are being nasty, and I'm a lot better at getting to why they're being nasty. And now, of course, women wouldn't really do that. That would not be, it doesn't come in, it doesn't happen that much, if at all. But taking that aside, if that were to happen, I would be able to handle it much better. So yes, the audience was awful. I had an awful time, but it was a learning curve. And no, at the time I was in tears. Of course, I'd had most dreadful time, but I definitely didn't sit there and go, oh, that was one gig that was unplayable. There are unplayable gigs, but I'd much rather say I didn't play it well. I don't think it's a great thing to start off saying there are just some shit audiences. There are, but that's not the point. The point is, what can I get out of a shit audience? You know?
that's a very good point. And I remember one of the greatest pieces of advice that I've had from a uh, pro comic was that to always think that I'm there to almost like serve for the audience in the night.
Yeah.
So it's less, which was quite interesting because it was like it's less about you, and it's even, I think he said something between the lines. It's less about your material. It's more about making the audience that's in front of you laugh. So
Yeah.
you got to deliver to them.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
I was like, interesting. So that's why I know sometimes when I'd go with like this material on, and then I'm like, I think they just want to be spoken to rather than hearing stuff. You just gotta give in.
I mean, yeah. And if you have a bad time, it's because you're not experienced enough. And that's okay too. Like I did this one in a pizza restaurant really recently. It was an absolute nightmare, but I just knew it was going to be a nightmare. And there was this one guy, it was his first gig for that promoter. And so he was really upset. And of course, I didn't really care because I've worked for them a lot, and it was absolutely unplayable. So it was hot. We were right above the pizza oven. It was a nightmare. And I took on my little fan and I said, listen, who has been the most annoying so far? And I was like, I'm going to swap you my fan for 10 minutes of your undivided attention. She's like, I can give you 2. I was like, okay, fine, but then I'll need the fan back. And we started off like that. I don't think I got a single joke out, but because I already knew that I wasn't going to, it wasn't a failure, it was actually a success. But of course, I felt very sorry for the guy who was doing a trial, because I mean, what can you do? It's impossible. The only thing he could have done to impress was to do the thing that he wasn't yet good enough to do, which is to adapt to the thing. But again, you're always going to have one. You try out, you fuck it up. I fucked up really important ones because it hasn't worked. And then I've killed the next night at a place where no one was watching. So, yeah. But
I mean,
you can adapt to the audience, but it takes a bit of learning.
I mean, it definitely does, and like I'm very conscious of time, so I want to ask you. The last question is have you got anything coming up? Anything that we should keep an eye out for?
I was writing on a sitcom by my very, very talented friend Garrett Millerick. I contributed a few jokes. It's called but he wrote most of it. It's called Do-Gooders. It's set in a charity. It's Radio 4, and it's really, really, really funny. It's got Frank Skinner in it, and it's excellent. And there's about 3 jokes of mine in it. And at the moment, I'm preparing a show that I'm going to film on YouTube. I'm probably going to film it at the King's Head, but I haven't. There's no date in. So what am I plugging? Just I guess just come and watch me learn to sew. I don't know.
Well, okay. Well, where do people find you
In
to watch you sew?
the attic sewing. I'm often at the King's Head on a Thursday trying out new material in Crouch End. That's somewhere that I go a lot because it's kind of like a home club, and I really, really like it there. But yeah, I'm mostly all over the UK at the moment. If you happen to be in the Isle of Man in the next couple of weeks, I will be there. Never been before, heard it's really weird.
No
Now,
way! It's the first time you're going to Isle of Man.
never been to the Isle of Man before. I know, I've heard it's really beautiful, and I know that they love kippers because I've had Isle of Man kippers, but that's pretty much all I know about the Isle of Man. Have you been to the Isle of Man?
I've been to the Isle of Man.
No, I've been to the Isle of Wight, never been to the Isle of Man.
No, I've never gigged. Not for comedy. I just went there.
Oh yeah, no, I've never done either. I've never been there, and I've never done comedy there. So it's quite exciting. It's always nice to do an abroad gig, even if it's just abroad to an island that's very close.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like England, but I don't know. It's weird because it's
Definitely part of Britain, but I think they have their own rules.
Yeah, but it does feel like home. Like I remember I used to live in Manchester at the time, and I went to Isle of Man, and I was just like, this feels. There is no difference between when I took the train to Preston.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
It's the same, yeah.
Yeah, so
They would
I
not
don't know.
appreciate being called the same as Preston. I think they're quite proud of their island sort of heritage vibe, whatever. But I think it's
It was nice, and I remember. I think I had the fish and chips, and then I had some like butter sausage or stuff like that. And I was like, you know what, this is good stuff.
Yeah,
like the food was actually quite nice.
Yeah, I'm sure it was lovely. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you, and take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, so what do you think? Was it good? Was it what you hoped for? Was it better? I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be worse. It was a great episode. I had such a great time to speak with Andrea, and very, very grateful to her for taking the time. They're very grateful to everyone listening for taking the time, and for everyone who's supporting the podcast. And please, don't forget, you can support the podcast by just following it, sharing with your friends if you liked an episode or two. That stuff goes a long way, and I'm very grateful for it. Now, there are a lot of things that I'm working through at the moment. And there will be some updates from me soon. But until then, thank you so much for listening. And from me, Pikal and Sarma, until next week, stay skillful and goodbye.